Hello, I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and you are watching What Wise Women Want here on CPA, Charlottesville, Comcast Channel 13. And we are here every week talking about very interesting topics with women from all over. And today we're going to be talking about, I'm sure you probably don't know this, but many of the major organizations are run by women. And today we're going to be talking about women who run chambers of commerce. So, and across the nation, in many different places, women are running chambers of commerce. So today I'd like to introduce you to three of our panelists. To my left is Val Palamountain, and she is with Fluvanna County. And next to her is Tracy Hale Clark, Hi. And she is with Louisa-County. And next to her is Deanne Marshall, and she is with Orange County, and they are all in Virginia. So ladies, let's just talk about a little bit about how did you get to be where you are in terms of working in a chamber of commerce? If you can just give me a little bit of background on that. Val, you want to start?
Why don't I start? I'm not actually employed with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm the vice president for the Fluvanna Chamber of Commerce, and that's a volunteer position simply because I'm a member. My day job is I'm the Dean of Workforce Services at Piedmont Virginia Community College. We have a part-time administrative staff who does all of the paperwork and things like that for the Chamber. So I'm just here representing the Chamber and hopefully can answer some of your questions, but I don't actually I don't have a management job there.
Okay. Tracy?
Hi, well, thank you for having me. And I would like to say to you, Val, volunteers are some of the most important people for the Chamber of Commerce. My road to the Louisa-County Chamber has really been a lifetime journey, to be quite honest. I started very young volunteering with the Junior Chamber of Commerce. And then I've subsequently always bumped up again against working with chambers of commerce, whether it's in partnership or in nonprofit fundraising and marketing. That was really my expertise. And a year ago, I was offered an opportunity to be the executive director with the Louisa Chamber. And here I am. I just celebrated 1 year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Deanne?
I have been a member of the Chamber, the Orange Chamber, for over 15 years. I've been on the board and I've been a past president, and this position came up recently and I decided to get my feet wet a little bit in this area and run the chamber, and I'm having a blast. It's so much fun.
It is fun, right?
That's good.
It is.
Fun, yeah.
Excellent. So in terms of, I too have been a member of the chamber since I was, my father was a long-term member of the chamber and encouraged us to join the chamber as well. So I've been a chamber for many years. And so, and the great thing about our area is if you belong to the Charlottesville Chamber of Commerce, then you can also participate in the Orange County, Louisa-County, Fluvanna County, and Greene County chambers as well, which is absolutely wonderful that we have these reciprocal agreements where we live. Now, as far as, so tell us a little bit about your membership, because your counties are virtually almost all rural for the most part. So tell us, and if people don't understand the difference between a rural and a metropolitan area chamber of commerce, because it can be very travel oriented, because you have to, if you're having meetings or you're having evening whatever gatherings or things like that, you're traveling from one end of the county to another, especially if they're large counties. So tell us a little bit about, anybody who wants to talk about rural kinds of chambers and how they might be different than metropolitan.
Well, I guess I'll speak up. My husband's a dairy farmer, so I'm very in touch with the rural community. But we associate a lot with like the Farm Bureau and memberships like nurseries and the fair. So we concentrate on those relationships quite often, and they turn out to be a good networking scenario in rural communities because you get to see different sides of all that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting in a rural community. The makeup of your membership is different from a metropolitan area. There tends to be a lot more small business than large business. You know, Louisa is a very diverse county. We've got a lot of agriculture, and agritourism is growing. That's one of the things that is a hot market for a lot of rural communities is agritourism.
What is that?
You know, the spikes that you see with wineries and craft beers and, you know, going on these day trips and wine trails and things like that. Agritourism, really anything that, I mean, shoot, even like a dairy farm could be agritourism if you wanted to. You could have cheese sampling if you thought about it.
Ice cream we used to have as kids.
Yeah, yeah, that would be good, right? Yeah, so that's what that is. Just, it's very diverse. Tourism is a big draw, at least in my county, because we have Lake Anna.
Right.
So that is a big draw into our, and that's a whole unique need for the chamber. So we as a whole, our organization, we serve a number of different, plus we have Dominion Energy, you know, which is huge.
Right.
So we have a very vast membership base and trying to meet the needs of all of those businesses. But the number one goal really is to foster the growth of the entire, you know, if we have strong business community and strong economy, then our community is being impacted.
Right. Val? how
Yeah,
about
we
you,
see
Dan?
the same thing. We're rural. One of our newest members owns a llama farm. So,
Nice.
which is so cool.
It is, it is.
You know,
I
and
know
then-
who that is, the woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, it's a woman who owns it, plus the wineries and craft brewing. So we see a lot of agritourism from those kinds of businesses. But Fluvanna is kind of a little bit different than maybe Orange and Louisa, because we are closer to Charlottesville. A lot of our residents commute to Charlottesville, or on the other side of Fluvanna, the west or the eastern side, they're going to be commuting more towards Richmond. So usually what we see are services, a lot of restaurants and shops and things like that, retail. So we see a lot of those businesses. A lot of those are startups, entrepreneurs. We see a lot of businesses just starting up in the community, and so we don't have as many large businesses. There are a couple of Tonasca, of course, and Lake Monticello is considered a large business. And then you have like the satellites. Centera Martha Jefferson has a facility.
Well, you have Monticello in your county, don't you?
Monticello, Thomas Jefferson.
Jefferson,
No, that's in Albemarle.
Oh, it's in Albemarle.
It's in Albemarle County.
The counties.
Oh, we have James Madison.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
you
you
do.
do have
Yeah.
Montpelier.
And then we have Barbersville. We have
Yeah.
the same thing. It's agritourism and bringing in tourism.
Lots
The
of history.
Lots of
That's another
It's
thing
such
about
a
rural
value
communities.
added.
There's a lot of history. I would also say what I see, I don't know about your counties, I would imagine, but a lot of homegrown, home-based business. You know, a lot of handcraft work. A lot of people are taking their goods and their wares, the talents that they have with their hands, and they're now creating a business from that. You know, a lot of woodworking, crafting, and things like that. With the explosion of like Etsy and some of those other
That was what I was about to ask you about. You know, you're talking about all these small businesses, you know, in your communities.
Yeah.
How the heck do they sell their goods? If you're spread out all over the place, you know, how do people sell their goods with Amazon and, you
Well, a
know,
lot
all
of
these?
times you don't realize what's in your own community because they don't need
It's all over the,
Yes.
There's
So what is the majority, you know, it seems to me, I mean, I drive around Charlottesville and it's empty brick and mortar all the time, and frankly speaking, I would never do brick and mortar again either. But so what, you know, how are the people in your community, because they are rural, are they mostly online, you know, and working online, or are they brick and
A
mortar
lot of
as
them
well?
are online.
well, I would even say not. They're trying to, but broadband and internet is so poor in rural.
That was what my question
So,
was.
one of the
a
problems,
lot. What we see is a lot of farmers markets.
Yes.
Because there's a huge trend towards organic and
Right,
grass, homegrown, handcrafted.
Artisan.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Local.
farmers markets are a big thing. A lot of festivals. Oh my gosh, we do a street festival. You guys do a huge street
We do a
festival.
street festival. We do a wine festival.
Yeah, and there's no shortage of businesses that come out. So they're basically a roadshow business. Is maybe that's a new category.
That's a good category.
I think so. Let's copyright that. Okay.
Well, I used to do that in my
Yeah,
own business.
okay.
I used to sell cheese from our farm, and it is like a family that would go around to all the different shows, and it's all these awesome people that have come up,
Oh, yeah.
very creative, that's come up with their own ideas of selling. And that is a real connection to a customer base.
Absolutely.
So you
Yeah.
really, I've built a lot of great
the irony
relationships.
here is these rural chamber and businesses that are associated are kind of ironically the opposite of what's happening in the general, United States, with everybody selling online and really not knowing. I mean, I remember buying I've had opportunity lately buying things on Amazon and discovering it came from China. And
Oh, goodness, yeah.
if I had known that, I would have never purchased it, but I didn't know that. And the great thing about having a local businesses and people who are able to sell their wares in different ways is that you know who you're purchasing from. And I know our farmers market, I know all the vendors,
Yeah.
the organic vendors.
your
and-
neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
In so many cases, I think there's a trend in metropolitan areas for that too. I mean, you see that with a lot of organic businesses and things like that happening, organic grocery stores and stuff like that. But just in a rural community, it keeps that family atmosphere, don't you think? Just, hey, let's go down to the farmer's market because Deanne's going to be there with her cheese. Yeah, it's like the thing to do.
Well,
So-
the reason I'm bringing this up because I hear a lot of small business owners complaining that you can't really do a business anymore unless you go on Amazon and Google and Facebook and all these other kinds of places in order to be able to advertise. So how, in terms of the local community, how has advertising changed in terms of, people on with newspapers, which is what it was in the past with classified ads and things of that nature, and in magazines and things, as opposed to everything being online today? How is that affecting your area?
Well, I think first of all, just because we're rural doesn't mean we don't necessarily have broadband. There is a plan in
Right.
Fluvanna County to bring in broadband.
Right.
We talked about last mile for the longest time.
I've been to those
And-
meetings.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's
and
definitely work.
It's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
work, but it's going to happen.
But the point is, it's not there yet.
In some areas, it's not there yet. In other areas, it is. The Zion
Yeah.
Crossroad area, no
Yeah.
problem at all. Lake
Right.
Monticello, no problem
Right.
at all. And that's where the population density is. So with some of the businesses, yes, they do have broadband. One of our success stories, our big shining success stories, is Red Rocker Candy. If you haven't had it, you need to. It'll change your life.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
wonderful.
on. It's wonderful. It was on Rachel Ray. Rachel Ray picked it out as the snack of the
Ah.
week, and sales just shot up.
Oh, wow,
online.
fantastic.
And then just recently, Sue Charney, who started the business, announced that she's expanding. She expanded multiple times, but now she's at the point where she had to make a decision whether to focus more on wholesale or retail.
Right.
And she's cutting back on her products, and she's going to focus on the wholesale because of the online sales.
There you go.
So
Oh, so the online sales are wholesale sales?
their yes. So she
Okay.
doesn't have to have a storefront.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so she will keep a storefront, but it'll be much smaller. She's still going to be selling through the local stores. Local Eats sells their products, and so does Jefferson Pharmacy right at Lake Monticello.
Right.
So she's still going to be selling her products through them, but she's not going to have the storefront because it's
Exactly.
extra work.
Exactly.
So
And more expensive
and
with
more
overhead,
expensive,
with all that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in terms of success, is there a huge turnover in, because you're so, small business oriented and person to person and all of that, instead of business to business, which is a lot of times what things, B2B, which is where people are. Is there a higher success rate because you're people to people more often than it is, when you're in a you know, everybody says the first 2 years are the worst because, you know, that's when businesses fail. So what is it, I mean, what is the, do you see businesses, you talk about all these startups, you know, how successful are all these startups after 2 years?
Well, I was just going to chime in. I don't know that there's necessarily a dramatic difference between a rural startup and somebody trying to start in a metropolitan area. I mean, I think a startup is hard. Starting a business is hard, whether it's bricks and mortar or whether it's an independent, you know, dairy farm or making crafts or something. I mean, starting a business is hard. And in a lot of cases, some people, they just have a passion for something and they don't know how to run the business and they kind of stumble into it. I would say that for our rural community, the challenges are very similar to anywhere else. You know, for our retail, restaurants and things like that, they need customers coming in the door.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, rural communities, I know in ours, we tend to have some manufacturing and things like that. Their challenges are different. They're not trying to get customers, they're trying to get a good quality workforce. And when you have a rural community, you have people going off to college and don't always necessarily come back to their rural community. So, you know, we focus on some of those issues that can really build a long-term sustainable community with growth. And we want to maintain our rural culture and that, you know, good, wholesome family, you know?
Right.
So
In Orange County, we're focusing very much on technical, vocational, having the students that aren't college bound, being able to offer something for these students
right.
to stay in the community, they can raise their family, they can sustain their own life in our community and not have to go away.
Yeah.
And your question earlier about marketing is very much a different story today. Before you'd put it in a newspaper, you would, you know, it is a totally different game online.
Absolutely.
And it's how you play the game if you're going to be successful or not.
Absolutely.
So we're going through that right now with our marketing plan for our wine festival. And it's, you have to be ahead of the curve. You can't keep on doing the same thing.
Right.
You have to move where the crowd is moving. And it's not necessarily all the money going into the papers. I love our local paper, the Orange Review. I love our Orange Review. But of course we're going to advertise in that, but I don't know if we're going to go much further past that and just really focus the online marketing.
I think companies are really facing, small businesses, everyone. I just met with a member of the chamber today who a lot of people around him are telling him he needs to be on Facebook. What he does and his target audience is such a niche, and his, you know, ideal customer probably doesn't even have a Facebook page. You know, but he's just having everybody tell, oh, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be on social media, you need to be, well, I would tend to disagree. So it's not a rubber stamp. You can't do the same old thing, but I do think, you know, social media brings a whole new opportunity for people, but you still have businesses and growth opportunity through traditional print and magazines and all of that.
All right, so let's talk about the chamber in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so the chamber traditionally used to be, excuse me, but a white man's organization. And I know I quit for a long period of time because they got really political, you know, in terms of backing certain presidential candidates and things of that nature. And how are you bringing, because it's been traditionally a kind of a boys' club, how are you bringing women into the, you know, what challenges do women, I think some of you have women's roundtables, thank you, I couldn't remember the name. Women's roundtables where just women attend, although we've had men.
We're starting it back up.
Yeah, you used to have it.
We did, and every month we go to different places, a restaurant. There'd be about 20 women, you know, if they can get away from their daily chores and their jobs. And it was a wonderful time to connect just women. Women have similar problems.
How is it different than, you know, gathering, why on earth, you know, and people are going to be looking at this and say, well, why are they, you know, having special time for women? What's the point of that?
Because women are special.
Well, so what kinds of challenges do women face in business?
Yeah, well.
You know, what experiences have you had with women in business? What their challenges are? Because you have these, you know, satellite kinds of groups that are all women only. So what kinds of challenges do women face in business that, you know, maybe men don't face?
Well, a lot of the traditional challenges are, you know, you're balancing work and home, especially if it's a woman entrepreneur. She's putting additional time into her job. So there's that balance, the work-life balance. But the other part of it is that I think a lot of women are looking for the validation that they get when they associate with other women. You know, making a business decision on your own is that's an uncomfortable position to be in. But being able to connect to other women who might be in a similar situation or have been through a similar situation, it gives them the opportunity to talk to someone else who has been there, who can validate what they are going through. You know,
Okay, before the cameras were rolling, you were telling us a little bit about your experiences about being the only woman. So give us a little bit of that story, because I think it's really important.
Well, I started my career in the IT business, and this was a long time ago. And there still aren't enough women in STEM fields, in the IT field. And I was one of the few project managers in my company who's female. And it's a lonely place to be. It's the other women in the company tended to be support staff. So who do I associate with? You know, you got to go out to lunch with the boys. You know, you feel a little bit awkward with that. So it was an uncomfortable position. Now that it's rare to see that now in industry, but it's still there. Where
Especially in that industry.
especially in the IT industry. So a woman who wants to start up an IT business, she's going to be lonely. She's going to be looking for other women to be able to validate. Because women don't have that kind of history. We don't have generations. I can't turn to my mother because my mother was a stay-at-home mom. I can't turn to my grandmother because she, you know, and the same thing. I can't turn to my sister because, you know, so it was, I didn't have that support network that a man would have.
That's a very good point.
Great
That's a very good point. I think women by nature too, we like to engage. We like to talk. We like to you know, have conversation. Men don't traditionally engage in that. So, you know, round table discussions, we like to talk through things, and we gain, you know, a lot of insight, like what she was saying. You're looking for bouncing off, oh, you have that, there's comfort.
Right.
When you know somebody else is experiencing, oh, I'm not all alone.
It's a support system, it really is.
Absolutely.
I've established many good friendships from that. And anytime, you know, I knew that I can call or get advice from these other women that are going through something similar as myself.
Well, one of the problems that I see with women over the years, it's been a long time since I've been in business, is that women don't know how to take leadership roles. And especially if there's men around, you know, who are either employees or bosses or things of that nature. And you know, even women who own their own companies oftentimes take a back step. You know, if for example, men are on our board of directors or something of that nature. How are your chambers of commerce? What are they doing to help women find that confidence in terms of leadership?
That's a really good question. I'm a kind of a believer that confidence comes within. You can't really you can foster and try to help people, but it's as far as women being in leadership roles. I think we've seen a shift. I think we've seen more and more women advancing into leadership roles. Now, does that mean that our entire culture has shifted? Not really, but I think there's a vast majority of women that are asserting themselves in leadership roles.
It's more acceptable.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some very capable women, but what you're seeing is this, in my opinion, you're seeing this kind of interesting dynamic now between men because now they have women in charge and they're not really
Comfortable
sure
with
how to
it.
do that.
Let's talk about that cultural change here.
Well, I think another aspect to it is that women tend to be collaborative. Whereas when you talk about a leadership role, you think of one person's up at the top and very hierarchical.
Yeah.
With women, it is much flatter, flatter. That women are much more collaborative. They're more likely.
They want to do teamwork and work together
They like
to be stronger.
teamwork.
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that builds an organization. If there's one person, dictating down from the top, then where's the collaboration? Do as I say.
Yeah, but for all these years, this has been the
It's been-
infrastructure
that's how
of
it is.
businesses, the pyramid effect, where there's one person at the top and it
Yeah.
comes all the way down.
Yeah.
So how do men, especially men, react to having a woman? I mean, I'm thinking of all these CEOs of, major companies like Facebook and things like that. How do men react to a woman who they're not enculturated to be collaborative. They're enculturated to be, we have sports and it's winners and losers. It's not about collaboration in our culture. Really, it's been for so long that it's all about who wins and who loses rather than win-win, which is, kind of the direction you're talking about now. So, and I see men struggling, all the time and don't know how to handle, teamwork and working together on projects and things of that nature. They want to go off and be on their own.
Well, I would even
What were
say
you
that
saying?
women. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Deanne?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think it depends on the person, not necessarily the male or female role. It really is the type of person you are. If you are going to be a person who focuses on a team environment, and I do know a lot of men that do that as well.
Yeah.
But and there is a group of men that prefer not to do that, but I feel like they are on the outside at this point. Because the only way that businesses and corporations and nonprofits get stronger is when people work together and value each other for who they are. Not what gender they are, what color they are, but who they are. Are they determined? Are they good-willed? So,
Yeah, I agree with what Deanne is saying. Plus, we're also seeing we're entering an era. We're in an era where the unemployment rate is so low that if we don't have collaboration and partnerships and working together, I don't know how anybody can succeed without that. And I think women are ideally situated to help build those teams, even in a male-dominated field or a business. I think women can definitely help by getting more collaboration, by getting more people involved. And that builds a stronger team, because if I forget who did this study, probably somebody like Sherm did a study, and the reason why people like their job is because they have a best friend at work. And the reason why people leave their job is because they can't get along with their boss. Let me figure this out, Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with the money, it doesn't have anything to do with the commute, it has to do with your relationships. And if your relationships are good and positive, then you want more of that. I want to come back for more.
Well, I want you to know, I was at a job fair today with a bunch of my clients who were looking for jobs, and the very thing you were talking about shocked me. I was sitting in a chair listening to these two guys who were starting a company, a restaurant, talking about teamwork, collaboration, working together as the foundation of their business.
That's awesome.
They were in their 20s, of course.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, and I just sat there listening to the two of them talk to everybody they were interviewing about how important this was in terms of, doing business. And I think what's happening now also is, in relation to this, is that there must be a job fair in this area every week, because nobody can find employees. And I know that's not just in this area, and again, it has to do with the employment and unemployment rate, but also because, immigrants used to be a huge part of many of what restaurants and housekeeping and all those kinds of things. And I have, as a job coach, I have businesses calling me constantly, weekly, please, can you find me somebody who can, fit? I have all this work to do and I have no employees who will do it. And so, I think you really have discovered something here with the difference in the top-down kind of leadership versus the, people stay, and this is what happens. People go from job to job to job to job to job, I mean, how many people have done that route?
Yeah, I would say that that's also a trend of our society. The days of working at a job for 20, 30 years is kind of gone. We've created this society of instant. I want instant, and even the younger, they're being taught, like, I'll work here for a few years, get some experience, and go over to another job and get more money. I mean, I even remember being coached. I was a manager up and coming in a business, and I was coached if I wanted to get to a higher level, I needed to leave, go somewhere else and get that experience, and then come back and apply to get a higher position. Otherwise, going up the ranks like you used to do way back in the day, that's what you have to do. So job hopping is there. People are always looking for the
A woman just told me this. She was working in Fluvanna County, came to Albemarle County to get up, and is now going back to Fluvanna County. And it's exactly as you. It's so humorous. She said that to me 2 days ago.
Well, and a lot of times, I would say it's true that people don't realize what they have until you're gone.
Right.
That's true.
And people will keep you in a particular role for as long as you'll let them.
Yep.
And so to your point about leadership and women stepping up to leadership positions and things like that, I mean, it really does come down to the type of person that you are, male or female, but female in particular. You have to assert yourself to the level of, hey, you might be a man and you're a leader, but I can lead too. Yes, I want to collaborate, but I can make the tough decisions, and I can, when push comes to shove, I can say, this is what we're doing. I'm strong enough to do that. And that's a very, that's a tricky place for women to learn how to do. And it's tricky for men to deal with that.
Right.
They,
I would just like to say, I think women have so much to offer as well.
Absolutely.
Women are natural multitaskers.
Yep.
I could have 5 or 6 different things all moving forward at once and be able to think. And I know several men that can only focus on one thing at a time. And it drives
There's science behind that.
Crazy.
There is science behind that.
You can't talk about anything but one thing. And here I wanted to say, okay, this, because women are natural. Have a natural ability to do that, and that is a huge asset.
Well, we had a show on last week, women owning multiple each one of them owned 3 businesses at a time, and this is exactly what we talked about, women being able to multitask when. So you were talking about, like events and things like that. So what happens when you're trying to, we had this conversation before the camera started running, but I found it really humorous, all the things you were talking about in terms of having to create events for the chamber. So what were you talking about, Val, in terms of?
Well, Fluvanna now focuses on its breakfasts. We do breakfast once a month, first Tuesday of every month. But before that, we were doing things. We had a wine festival, and we used to do barbecues, bands, and brews. Which were big events in Fluvanna, and the reason they were very successful, and then the rains came, and and it was like several years in a row we got rain, and it wasn't just drizzle, it was downpours, and you'd be up to your knees in mud, and nobody was showing up. And what we realized, the chamber of course lost money on these events, and the issue that we ran into was that most of the work and most of the cost is up front. If you're going to have barbecue, bands, and brew, you've got to have barbecues coming. You've got to be able to contract with the bands. You've got to have the breweries coming. You've got to get the tents. You've got to get the, the police, security, and things like that. So all of those costs were up front. If it rained, you're out of luck.
Right.
You're out of luck.
Yeah.
And you're also out of a lot of money. And we realized, it was successful for a while, but we could not just hold our hopes that the weather would be nice on the day that we picked on the calendar. And in addition to that, even though we found ourselves competing with our very customers, the people who belong to the chamber, because they were having wine festivals and craft brewing festivals and things like that. That's the last place you want to be as a chamber.
Well, I will give you a little hint. I had clients who are constantly depressed, and I kept thinking, God, when is it ever going to stop raining? And so I did a study. I looked at the rain in Virginia over the last couple of decades, and it turns out, I mean, there were fewer sunny days in a month than there were cloudy and rainy days.
Yeah.
And so, what you're saying, I mean, who thinks about that when in terms of when you're, and now we know why people aren't having events anymore.
Well, I wanted to, I just wanted to, first of all, I think we need to clarify, the Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization. So doing events is a way for us to generate non-dues revenue, right? We're a membership-based organization. So we, as leaders of the chamber, need to come up with a way to raise additional funds so that we can serve our members, meet their needs, whatever those might be. Doing events is one vehicle to do that. And in her particular case, even in our particular case, you have to make the smart business decision. Doing an event by the chamber is basically our product. If our product is not profitable, then you need to stop doing it. And profitable can be measured by a number of things. It can be finances, it can be exposure, it can be what's the benefit to our membership, right? But you have to evaluate all of those things, even in the programming that we offer. I mean, we've scaled back to the number of events that we were doing that was driving, I'm a one-person office right now, so you have to look at those decisions too. But events are, in my opinion, one of the greatest marketing vehicles for a lot of our businesses, the agro businesses and things like that. I don't ever perceive, you could say events compete with other events. Right. But I just believe in abundance. There's enough out there, that you could have multiple events happening. People are going to be attracted to different things. The weather, however, you don't have control over that.
Well, Mother Nature is Mother Nature.
Exactly.
We have no choice.
You who owns farms.
But we have an event the first weekend of May, Orange Uncorked Wine Festival, and we are dealing with a lot of these same issues. And it does bring a value to our community. It brings a lot of people in.
Absolutely.
And it has something fun for the local people to go to as well. Families come in, they all go to the festival. There's music, there's local, there's artisans and good food, and it's just everything good in one place. And it's fun to do, but you do have to, in the end, you do have to make a business decision.
Right.
If you're not making money, you have to make a wise decision. You can't keep on doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Exactly.
So you have to be willing to change with the times.
So as nonprofits, I'm guessing, and I think people don't even realize that the chamber is a nonprofit. I think they don't even understand that.
They
it's
probably
driven
don't.
by
Chamber of
membership.
Commerce, it doesn't sound like a nonprofit.
No,
does it?
I know. Well, they just think you're there for business.
That's
You support
right.
businesses. You must be a business, and we do operate like a business. I mean, nonprofits have to operate like a business.
Well, one of the things I used to really object to was the membership fee and the way businesses operate in our locality. So, for example, a person who owns a business that has, let's say, 5 to 10 employees is paying the same membership fee as a solopreneur. And I got so upset that or a nonprofit who doesn't have a whole lot of money either, and anybody but the chamber should understand that. So I decided, I wrote a check out that I thought would be the appropriate amount of membership for solopreneurs, and I gave it to the president of the chamber, and I said, when you start charging solopreneurs this fee, I'll come back. And they told me that what they did was they used to put the check in the middle of the board meeting every month until they got to the point where, it took a year.
Brilliant.
It took a year. Yeah. But it happened around Christmas because the president of the board came up to me and said, "You won." But, I don't think, oftentimes chambers don't realize, we're not all the same, in terms of owning a business. And to have a flat fee membership for everybody is just not fair.
I think that's non-existent.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Diane? Non-existent?
Non-existent.
The flat fee, there's usually tiers.
There's a number.
Single,
there's so many
1 to
different
3,
models.
4 to 8.
Right.
You represent.
Well, there's
Is that wait a minute, is that nationally?
No.
Okay.
No,
Each local.
each local chamber decides.
Okay, so each
Yeah.
chamber.
Yeah.
And there's
having
a
a flat
trend
fee.
happening too.
Yeah.
There's chambers, there's different, we're actually examining things right now. We're a service organization to our members. We provide service and opportunity, and we're there to help them. So, but at the bottom line, we're a dues-based, membership-based organization. So we're trying to find the right formula. But I wouldn't make the statement that every chamber is the same. Not all of them are based on number of employees. There's some chambers out there that have tiers that include sponsorship opportunities. There's some that are subscription-based. There's a number of varieties of chamber dues structures that are happening.
Okay, so Tracy said the chamber does things for business.
That's
so
right.
what does the chamber do for business?
I think, in my opinion, the most important thing we do is networking.
Okay.
We provide opportunities for businesses to network with each other, whether it's at our monthly breakfast meeting, or we have after hours, we do grand openings, cut the ribbon kind of thing. We do a couple of dinners, an annual meeting and things like that. But every event we do has time for networking. So there might be a program, there's always a program at the breakfast each month, but we intentionally set aside at least a half hour for people to talk.
Okay, I'm shy. I don't want to go. I'm going to come into a room full of people I don't know, after I just joined the chamber. So what's going to happen to me who's really shy, and I don't make friends very quickly.
If I'm
She's laughing.
if I'm running the if I'm running the breakfast or the dinner, I tend to look for those people.
Okay.
Being in our role,
Yeah.
you look for those people and try to connect with them. So it's real important to know what's.
Yes.
And that's another woman thing. I can comb the room and know, okay, that person, that person feels out of place.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll go over and help that, help bring that comfort on. So, and then bring that person into the group and facilitate a relationship. And and it's also, these networking is building relationships. In order to do good business, you have to have good relationships. And
That's what business is all about, relationship to relationship.
Business is all about,
Yep.
and it's based on your reputation. So, it's important to establish yourself in a community, in a business community, with a good reputation, good friendships, and a love for your community, which I think being a part of a chamber is also a love for your community. We do a lot of work that is good work with our schools, and
Yes.
Whoa!
I would say that-
What do you? 1 second. What do you do with your school? What does the chamber do for
I'm
schools?
so excited. So we started an internship program. So with the DECA Club in Orange County High School, we have a student coming, and this started when I came on, because this has been my dream, to have a student come and work in the office twice a week for about an hour and a half a week. Long enough to say, this is, you answer the phone, this is what you do. She's teaching me some social media tricks. So it's not only her learning, it's me learning as well. But and our school system is doing that throughout our county. We had the school come down to our farm because we have robots. We had the robotic team, the agri team, and the mechanics team come down. So the schools are really getting involved in our community. So
We have
So wait a minute. So
amazing-
your chamber is then the bridge between the school district and connecting
it's
with the
one of
business?
the bridges.
Okay, excellent.
So the superintendent is on our board.
Ah.
And I've had three kids go through the school system, so I have a real passion for getting some of these kids that are not college bound into a vocational skilled training course so they can be, they can support themselves and they're not just floating along, you know.
Well, and you know, you said something about relationships, and if there's nothing else we get from all these conversations on this show is business is all about relationships. I recently somebody purchased a car dealership in this town that had been run for decades by a family. And they came in and were trying to do a corporate kind of business. And ironically, I went to buy a car from them. And the guy who sold the car to me lied to me about several different things, then would not correct the kinds of things that he lied. He told me the radio had Wi-Fi and it didn't. He told me the tires were brand new. I brought it to the mechanic and they were 2009 and were practically flaking off. And so there were all kinds of things wrong with the car. And so I went, as a woman, instead of going back and bitching and complaining and all that, I wrote a 3-page letter of every single thing that happened to me, just every fact that happened to me. I sent it to the manager of the company and I sent it to the corporate headquarters. And the day the corporate president got the letter, he showed up here in the afternoon. He flew here and showed up in the afternoon, called me and said, because in my letter, I said, I suggest you go look and see what my footprint is on social networks. And I said, secondly, business is all about relationships. Relationships are all about trust. And I said, there is no way that you build a trusting relationship in this small community and lie to people about the kinds of things that you're selling. And what he told me was that after all the commotion I caused, I walk into the dealership and everybody, because two people got fired over this.
Good.
But because both of them lied, and so this is the impact we have, you know, in terms of being. It's important, especially in a small community. Relationships are really important, and what it does is it builds people's character. When you have to do business in a community, your integrity is your, you know,
and you're held accountable.
Exactly, especially in a small community, especially in a rural community too.
I just wanted to add that you asked the question about what service and what does the chamber do for our businesses. At the very core of what a chamber is we advocate, we are the voice for our businesses. You know, the U.S. Chamber is the largest lobbying group in the U.S. and it's because all business is able to, you know, move and guide legislation to help all business, no matter what size. And at the very local level, that is what a chamber, one of the greatest assets of having a chamber is about, is being the voice for your businesses. And whatever that issue might be, I had one business that was struggling to get the trash cans that they needed, so they called the chamber, hey, can you help me out with this? So it's about being that center point, that connector. We talk about connecting businesses, but we are also the connector between our government, between our schools. We have an amazing connection with our school, and our whole workforce development program is an amazing collaboration between our CTE and our school system, between Piedmont and Virginia Community College. We're launching Network to Work in Louisa that started here in Charlottesville, and we're launching that in Louisa, which we're so excited about.
Amazing.
And it's just this wonderful collaboration of people in the community. Nonprofits are involved because they're feeding in the people that need the jobs, and we've got businesses and organizations and the school and the government. It's just, that's really, your chamber is at the center of all of that. We're the connecting piece.
That's
What
true.
were you going to say about
that
relationship?
Just what Tracy was saying, that
Ditto.
for a company or an entrepreneur to try and make all of those relationships with the school, with the government, with other business, forget it. It's overwhelming. But you know what we've been talking about. You know, 10 minutes ago we were talking about relationships, the importance of relationships within an organization, making sure that your employees were happy. Now we're talking about our relationships with our customers. There's also the relationship with other businesses, and that's something for I think that everybody knows you have to be good to your customer.
Right.
Right. That's pretty much 101 material.
Right.
But being able to connect to the other businesses within your community is something that I think gets overlooked by a lot of organizations. But knowing what somebody else is doing, and it's because we're a very competitive society. So if I'm working with somebody, if I own a business and a restaurant or whatever, and I'm not going to be friends with the restaurant next door because that's my competition. But if we look at them as, if we work together, we can both be successful. And that's a different mindset. And the chamber facilitates all of that.
Well, one of the things that, I will admit, have a little bit of problem with is that because of the nature of the work that I do, like advocating for autistic people or people who don't have a voice, I tend to not make friends if you're the one who's doing something against my client. And in a small community like this, the word gets around, be careful, of working with her. And so, a lot of times, especially women who are assertive and, we're called the B word and all that kind of thing, we have a difficult time in terms of, collaborating with people because we are assertive. And, I am assertive. Everybody knows the kinds of things I've done in this community because I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. That's the northern kind of way you do it.
Persistence.
You're direct, you're persistent, and you keep on going, but I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And, I can't tell you how many times one of the members of this community said to me, Daria, if you were a man, that skateboard park would have been named after you.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And so, it's even though the chamber, and I belong to all of them, on the periphery, because of the nature of the work that I do, I can't advertise the way everybody else does. I can't have my clients going out there and telling everybody, what kinds of work I did for them because it's confidential work a lot of times. And so I have to put myself out there all the time. And, I don't exactly have the most soft, gentle personality, especially when it comes to business. So, I think we talked about all the kinds of things that we do as women, collaboration and all those kinds of things, but I think there's also a perception of us, when we are powerful and we do get things done and we do get things accomplished. As I said, when I walk in that car dealer, everybody leaves the floor, because they're afraid of me now because they realize, whoa, she got 2 people fired. So, and rightfully so, but, I'm trying to get here. Women in business aren't always perceived, and that's why I appreciate the women's roundtables in each of because women with women have a different kind of relationship than men with women, who are assertive and aggressive.
I think, because you and I have worked together.
Yep.
And we've I've worked with some of your clients, and when something has come up, what do? We sit down and talk. Yep. Right?
Yep.
And that's what women do. What do? They sit down and talk.
Yep.
Sorry.
I think that is a different approach than what we traditionally see in a male-dominated world, where if something is wrong, what would have happened if I hadn't been there, if it had been a man?
Yep.
First of all, I don't know if your clients would have been working for me.
Exactly.
Number one. Secondly, I'm not sure they would have stayed.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, but what I saw was this is the right thing to do. And I'm also seeing that we're going to have a shortage of workers. We already have a shortage of workers. That means anybody who is capable of working needs to be working.
Yep, exactly.
So we need to find a different way to be more inclusive. We talked about diversity earlier. We need to be more inclusive so that we can be welcoming and supportive of those who may not think like us, look like us, work like us. act like us.
And again, very shortly, you know, at the current trajectory, by the year 2025, 1 in 2 children will be diagnosed with autism, and they are flooding the market. And, you know, here I am putting them in the market with people who don't train, who tell you something once and expect. I mean, I sat with one of my clients the other day who they gave him a task that had 10 different steps to it that were completely different and unique than anything he'd ever done before. And they went through it once and expected him to know everything. And after they left the room, I had to sit down and break it apart step by step by step and say, this is, you know, everybody assumes you know what you're doing after you've been told once. Okay, so
We're a
down.
microwave society.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we have no patience. And first of all, I would just like to say you didn't get any.
Go ahead. I didn't get anybody.
You didn't get anybody fired. They got themselves fired.
Yeah, exactly. So in these last few minutes, can we go around if you have anything you'd like to say that we each have about 30 seconds. If you have anything to say that you would like to convey to people or any piece of information that we haven't covered. Deanne, you want to start?
Well, I just wanted to highlight our event.
Okay.
The Orange Uncorked Wine Festival is the first weekend of May in Orange County at Grenland.
Okay.
And it's going to be a wonderful time. I love working for my chamber. It's one of the best things that I've experienced being a part of a chamber. It's a good way to be part of the community. And I value that. I deeply value that.
Yeah.
Tracy?
It is. I would just like to share, Louisa has definitely got a lot going on. We're getting ready to launch a campaign that we received a grant from Virginia Tourism Corporation. Oh, wow. And we'll be launching that in February, the month of love. So I'm excited about that. Yes, yes. And just keep an eye on us. We've got a lot of things going on. We're working on the problems facing our community workforce, a lot of what we've talked about today.
Okay. Val?
Thank you for inviting me. But what I would like to say is if you are not a member of the chamber, join. If you are a member of the chamber, get involved. Because the more involved you are, the more support you will get. All of us will run into some roadblock or stumble over something at some point, and you've got the chamber behind you. As Tracy said, that's the largest lobbying group in the U.S.
And one of the things we didn't talk about is Chamber has senior people who are retired. What SCORE? Who come and, I mean, all
free.
chambers have that free to help people who are in business. With also tons of volunteers. You know, everybody can volunteer in their chamber and do things as well. So we'd like to thank you for joining us today, and I'd like to thank again my guests. We have Val Palamountain from Fluvanna County and Tracy Hale Clark from Louisa-County and Deanne Marshall from Orange County. And you have been watching What Wise Women Want here on Charlottesville CPA Channel 13, Comcast Channel 13. And please join us again next week. And on YouTube and on our website, whatwisewomenwant.com, you can see all of our shows. Thank you.